Outcasts aren't real. Outcast, black sheep, lone wolves, odd ones out, persona non grata, aliens in our own world. For some reason, this state of exile is a chosen path, a rejection of conformity, a declaration of liberty. For others, it is thrust upon us by circumstances beyond our control. Family, community, society, all reject us. And for others still, it is both a mingling of rebellion and rejection, of defiance and desertion. But religion, that ancient promise, spends much of its time calling out to the outcast, to the outlier, to join, promising community and unity to those who have either never known it or those who were once held by it, but have long lost the memory of its touch. It speaks of kingdom and family, of belonging to a people, of being knit together as one body. For those of us who grew up as misfits, rebels, and outsiders, the paradox is both beautiful and baffling. We are asked to surrender our rebellion, to suppress our rebellious nature. Yet we never quite lose the label of outcast. The popular and well-established still view us with wild suspicion and speak of us with split tongues, welcoming us as brothers and sisters to our faces, while deriding our identities and questioning our membership in their church, not behind our backs, but to the camera. We are called to join, yet we still remain apart, as the hypocrites reject us for not fitting in properly, for not conforming in the right way, in the way that they would prefer us to conform. To be clear, it is not usually priests or deacons who actively reject us. And most church-going members of the pews give little more than a weary or disapproving look, which passes with time. But it is the YouTube and TikTok evangelist and apologist who hate us with words of love. Religion, particularly in its Christian expressions, offers a promise of belonging that transcends the fragile social contracts of this world. It speaks of a kingdom not of this earth, a kingdom where the last are first and the meek and humble inherit. This promise rings deeply in the heart of the outsider. To the bullied, the ostracized, the abandoned, and the neglected, Christ's call is hope. I came for the lost, not for the found. And he who is least shall be first. Religion promises unity, but only through submission. It promises communion, but only through obedience. For the rebel, whose survival has come only through stubborn defiance and a general distrust of all obedience, through a strong will, through a hardened heart. Blind trust means death. It means being abused, being made a fool of, being mocked, being used, and ultimately being rejected and abandoned once more, once again. But in Christianity's defense, it speaks of obedience and slavery to God, not man, of rejecting worldly power, glory, fame, and fortune. It speaks of a master whose service is freedom, whose burden is light. Yet still, the burden of this world is very real, especially for those who choose to take it on, or for those who it is thrust upon. For those of us who grew up as latchkey kids, or homeless, or in orphanages, or in juvenile detention centers, the language of conformity and submission can feel like a lie, especially when couched in the dialect of family, promising peace, but only granting victimhood and powerlessness. We are asked to belong to this kingdom, yet our whole lives have been defined by not belonging or submitting to anyone. We are called to communion with others, yet it was others who hurt us, abused us, bullied us, took what little we had from us, laughed when we failed to get it back, and mocked our attempts to try. I too have felt this burden. When I listen to polished voices of popular Christian apologists, those with happy childhoods, loving families, and seamless transitions into faith, I feel rage. I do not relate to their experience. My father was an alcoholic and a workaholic. I grew up surrounded not by celebrations and life, but by death, real, tangible death. Not metaphorical dying to self or symbolic death in baptism, but the literal kind that buries people in the ground and never gives them back. By the time I was 22, over 100 members of my family had died. Diabetes on my mother's side, cancer on my father's side, and a few self-deletions along the way. To this day, I still can't bring myself to attend church on Mother's Day. When I try, the homily makes me want to scream or run. My mother died when I was 6 after years of illness. On top of that, after her death, I was bullied for being different. Soft-spoken, soft-skinned, skinny, for loving the color pink, for caring more for narrative-driven stories than an action flick, for not fitting the mold of what a boy was supposed to be. I wasn't the star quarterback, the school president, or the top student. I was a drunk. I had dandruff. I got into fights and failed to do my homework. I didn't always go to school, and when I did, I mostly daydreamed. When I hear Christian speakers wax poetic about family unity and parental love, I cannot help but feel alienated. It's not that I reject their experience, but I cannot relate to it. When they preach about the ideal family, I am reminded not of what I had as some kind of nostalgia bait, but of what I lacked. But here is the irony. The church itself is supposed to be the haven for the outcast. Christ himself was an outsider. He came to his own, and his own rejected him. A prophet is not without honor except in his hometown. He dined with sinners, forgave the whore, welcomed the thief, touched the lepers, defended the adulteress, and comforted the outcast. Yet today, when you watch Christian and Catholic YouTube or TikTok, the recommended and For You pages are thick with heretics and apologists, condemning and judging the very people Christ came to save. These clean-cut, well-spoken, well-dressed family men and family women, these sophists and grifters, insult and condemn the murderer, the thief, the tax collector, the foreign soldier, the promiscuous, the queer person, be they LGBT or not, all while lining their pockets with donations and filling their channel with subscribers. Meanwhile, the odd, the awkward, the socially inept linger in the back, castigated and painted with false colors to comfort those who consider themselves saved. Is this elitism, religious snobbery, spiritual pride? Perhaps. Or maybe it's just malicious hate and ignorance, instinctual fear, hate and fear of those who are different, sick, or want revenge for the wrongs done to them. Their guilty conscience can't help but think what they would do in our situation. But we are not them. But were they not told? Christ did not come for the healthy, but for the sick, not for the righteous, but for the sinner. The righteous have their own reward in this world, but the suffering, the meek, and the humble will have their reward in the next. For Christ wants not pride or vainglory, no sacrifices of that kind. No, he wants a contrite heart and a broken spirit. These apologists and evangelists, these sophists and grifters, create barriers with their tongues and presumptions when God tore the veil in two. They look down on the addict, the divorcee, the homeless, and the emotionally ill when God loved them and turned to them. They hide behind theology and dogma when God commanded them to go out and clothe the needy, to give them food and water. God told them to do good works, but they shake their heads and say, grace.